All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. And as we, you know, told you that we are again restarting this batch of abroad education. This is basically consist of regular sessions on university scholarships and some capacity building sessions, especially skill building sessions on SOP, CVs, and in general you are networking with the people from different universities, which will help you to get into these universities. And we may have some people who will be going to your mentor, who will check your SOPs sometimes, so that will definitely help you in improving your SOPs. So today what we are going to do, just to give a brief introduction of like what we are going to do in this session. The very important part of this is you know uh, uh, SOP is one of the very important aspect of your university application process. So uh, outrightly we are starting with this key, what is SOP, how to write it. And for that we have Sumeet Samos with us. So Sumit is a PhD candidate student at University of Pennsylvania, which I often not able to pronounce well. So he is doing his PhD in South Asian Department of South Asia, and before that he has done his masters from Oxford University. Then he also has done his master from JNU, and he used to be a rapper. I don't know if he is a rapper now, but he's academician now, intellectual, and he largely talks about caste, Christianity, religious convergence in Odisha. Yeah, so this is about Sumit, and just to just to begin with, please take your notebook and sit, write, take notes, because this is very important. Don't watch lectures by just for sake of watching, because many of the students very who are very new here, and they might be thinking it's just a one lecture, but it's a very important skill that you're gonna need for the whole of the process. That is, this is one of the part that defines your whole application process. So it's up to Sumit now. Thank you. Yes, you can start now.
Yeah. Yes. Hi, everyone, and thank you, SRC, for this opportunity. And I mean, every time I'm asked to, give a talk on how to write an SOP, it's a very broad area. Like you really need to you really. I mean, it's a broad area because students come from different backgrounds. Some of them apply to development studies. Some of them are into law. Some of them are into history, anthropology, comparative literature. So many different streams are there that you're going to apply. And SOPs, I mean, I assume this is for master student. Most of you are applying for masters, because for PhD you write a proposal, and for masters you usually write an SOP. So that's like a vast difference. The other difference between SOP and proposal is that proposal is going to be, I mean, especially in Europe, if you're writing a proposal, then you have to also cite a lot, right? Like you do have to do a broad literature review. You have to also detailedly write about your methodology. You have to mention the theoretical frameworks that you're going to use, and this is largely about PhD. Um, so if any of you are applying for PhD, you can maybe later reach out to me. But whatever I'm going to talk to you today would be largely directed towards writing an SOP for masters. And I'm and it's not that easy, neither it's difficult. It is all about how do you put together different elements within those you know 800 words or 1,000 words, right? And I've been writing SOPs since I think 2020, and the SOPs that I wrote were for Oxford, Cambridge, SOAS, um, King's College London, and now, of course, SOPs for US universities. And whatever I'm going to share with you are largely, uh, the ideas and concepts that I have in mind, which has worked for me, and also something that has worked for some of the students that I know. And last over the last 4 to 5 years, I've also interacted with a lot of faculty members. I mean, formally, informally, and they've told me as to what exactly works, in SOP. So yeah, let's start. And you guys, like after I speak, you guys will have some time to ask me questions, so you can do that as well. So yeah, one of the first thing to keep in mind while writing in SOP is that like your SOP is not just about the research that you're going to do for your masters. Your SOP is a reflection of your whole personality, right? When I say your whole personality, it includes your academic journey, it includes your extracurricular activities, it also includes you know some particular unique experiences in your life which led you to do this particular research, and your knowledge about the university that you're going to, and what are you going to, what is it that new, what is it that something new you're going to contribute through your research. So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind. Right, so SOP is basically your whole personality, it's not just the research that you're going to do. Second thing that you need to keep in mind is how you start your SOP and how you end your SOP. Because most of the people who are going to read your SOPs in European universities are going to be largely, old white people. Okay, let me be very honest. These are going to be largely old white people, and they've been reading SOPs for years. They've been reading SOPs for years in the same discipline, in the same subject, and uh, they get bored, like they usually get bored because hundreds of SOPs keep coming to them. So in the first few lines, the first 4 to 5 lines are very important, and in the first 4 to 5 lines is where you capture their attention. Okay, you so your starting is very important. If you start by saying that you cannot do a very dry start. What I mean by dry start is you cannot just start by writing, oh, my name is this, I studied in these universities and I am applying for like a master's to your universities. You cannot do that because everybody does that, right? And that really puts them off. I mean, they don't want to know your they don't want to know your biography in the SOP because they already have your CV for your biography, right? Like your name, your masters, your undergrad, how much, what's your grades. They know it already through your CV. Hence, your SOP is not going to be a biography of your academic journey, right? So you have to start with something that captures their attention, that keeps them, that makes them want to read more of your SOP. So your first few lines should be about, it should be some very interesting event that happened in your life. It can be some interesting news article that really impacted you, or something that you read in a particular place, some quotes. You cannot just put random quotes, a quote that a citation somewhere, that something that really impacts your research, or maybe some figures. Let's say if you're working on development sector, like if you're into development studies or public policy, maybe some reports that came out last year, you know uh, that really speaks to your broad research, like broad project. And hence the first few lines are very important, some interesting event. And this interesting event doesn't have to be about your personal experience growing up in a village, or or how you come from a marginalized background. You shouldn't start with that, because that will, that shouldn't be how you present your research. Your experience matters, but your personal experience shouldn't really overpower your starting lines. So your starting lines should be something that really captures their attention. Okay, that's my first key encouragement to you guys, is that your first few lines has to be something that captures their attention. It can be particular event, like let's say, for example, I'm working on student politics, and I want to maybe start my SOP by narrating an anecdote from some particular event in student politics, maybe Rohit Vemula movement, or maybe the protests in Jamia Millia Islamia in 2020, or some protests in 1980s, something like that, some event, right? Or let's say you are working on criminality. Okay, you're working on criminality and Indian justice system. Maybe you can start with some reports. Okay, maybe you can start off with some popular article about how criminality is, how you understood criminality, how you came to look at criminality, right? And so what matters now is primarily that your first few lines should be either you should either talk about interesting event, or a report, or some popular article or something like that. Once you do that, once you mention that, you should link it to your larger, like, project, right? Like, for example, once you mention a particular event or newspaper report or something like that, then you should say how that impacted you to think about a particular topic, or a particular research idea, right? And how, and yeah, once you do that, the second line is basically how it impacted you, how it encouraged you to think of a particular research idea, how it made you see the world in a different way, how it made you think about that particular topic again. And once you do that, the second part of it, once you do that, you then talk about your academic journey, right? That you've a little bit of academic journey where you studied, and like what particular subject you studied, and during that, did you come across some professors, did you come across some research articles, did you come across some theoretical frameworks, did you come across some thinkers, who you were impacted by, and who gave you kind of the framework, or who gave you that kind of a background and encouragement to think through about this topic, right? And so that is also very important, right? Like, as much as the first few lines about a particular event or the reports, or numbers are important, it is also about your academic journey. Like, during your academic journey, who did you read, who were you influenced by, and you have to mention a little bit about, like, let's say, for example, I'm working on caste and experiences, right? In higher education. So I might then mention scholars like Gopal Guru, or the like Aniket Javare, or some of these scholars who've worked on caste and experiences. So you have to know your top theme, right? Like, in your particular universities, who did you read? And if you're working on literature, then you might have to know few names and two three of their theoretical frameworks, right? Like, for example, how did they think about certain things that really influenced you. And so then, from your academic journey, where you explain a little bit about theoretical frameworks or the thinkers, or some particular literature that you read, then you move on to, once you do that then you start moving on to your broad research idea. That, given this background, you want to do a master's thesis, or you want to do research on this theme. Okay, and you have to lay out your theme very clearly. This is what, you lay out your theme very clearly, what you're going to study, what you're going to do for your master's thesis. And once you do that, once you make it very clear about what you're going to study, in your masters, what you're going to do research on your masters, uh, you you say that, you have to say what has you give a brief literature review there. Okay, in that particular theme, on that particular theme, who else have written, who else have done their work on, some popular writers, some popular thinkers who worked on that particular field, and what they have to say, right? What they have to say, little bit of that, not too much, little bit, two three scholars, you mentioned that they have to say. Let's say, for example, you're working on urban space. Okay, let's say you're working on urban space and waste economy. If you're working on that, then you have to cite two three authors around waste economy and what they said, right? Or what some of them said, and then you either agree with them, or you disagree with them, or you say that something is still missing, that these scholars who've worked on this particular area have not looked at this thing. Okay, or they have worked on this area, but I am trying to expand their understanding to do something new through my research. Okay, and once you do that, once you elaborate your idea, once you elaborate your like research idea, once you give a brief literature review, when you give literature review, you cannot just say this person has worked on this topic, that person has worked on this topic. No, you have to say what they worked on, what they say, and how you're going to agree with them or you're disagreeing with them, and how your contribution, your research is going to be something new. Your research is going to find out something new. And once you do that, if you've already done some field work, okay, you've worked, if you've done NGO work, or if you've done an internship, then you can make claim to that, saying, okay, I've already done an like NGO work, I have already done some internship on this field, and so because I've already done some internship, I've done some NGO work, I already have some work experiences, and that means I have already some field experiences also. So that will tell them that you don't just have theoretical background, but you also have field experiences, which is important, right? Once you do that part, then you come to methodology. Okay, that how you're going to, what methodology are you going to use? Are you going to do qualitative, qualitative field work? Are you going to do quantitative studies? If you're going to do qualitative field work, what are you going to do? Are you going to do semi-structured interviews? Are you going to do structured interviews? Are you going to do focus group discussions? Are you going to find your interlocutors through snowball sampling? Are you going to, you know do quantitative study? And quantitative study, what are you going to look at? What is your scale? What is your numbers? What is the scope of your field? Which particular village or which particular district, and why that particular district, why that particular state? Okay, is something that you have to justify in your methodology. And methodologies should not be long, it should be short. And if you've already done some field work, then you can also add it there, that I've already done some qualitative field work, I have already done some quantitative work for this. But there you have to also justify why you're looking at that particular place, why that particular place you want to do your research. you know and a little bit of the demography. Let's say if you're looking at young population, if you're looking at women's education, then if you're looking at particular region in Maharashtra, then you can say, oh, this particular region is where women's education, the indicators are quite low. Okay, most of the women are migrant workers, so I want to look at how does then these people engage with vernacular education. What are the difficulties they have, what are the difficulties they face in terms of access, right? And it is an important aspect because this region has been labeled as backward for so long, and I need to do something. If you're looking at literature, let's say the example of if you're looking at the concept of personhood, and so you might have to, there you don't need to do field work, then there you have to do some sort of reference you have to do some sort of citations as to how have said some authors in Indian literature, Hindi literature or English literature looked at the idea of personhood, and how you want to understand personhood, something new through another kind of literature, right? So the methodology is something about why you choose a particular place, why you're choosing particular text. Okay, what is your method? Is it qualitative? Is it quantitative? Is it going to be archival work? Is it going to be field work? If you're going to do archival work, where you're going to do archival work? If you're going to do field work, where you're going to do field work? Why that field work? I mean, why that particular field site? How many people are there? Little bit of that explanation, so that you will tell them that you are already acquainted with your field. Okay, you're already engaged with your field. Once you do that, once you do the methodology, once you do the methodology, then now you come to a little bit about the university that you're going to study, right? Like the university that you're going to study, that particular department, do they have some colloquiums, do they have seminars, do they have great resources? Their department, what is the department known well for? Some of the scholarships that the department have produced, some of the professors, you can look it up, you can look up the websites of the professors, and to see what they've worked on and how their work coincides with your work. And so you have to mention that as well, how your work coincides with their research interests, and that you working under them, how is it going to help you out, right? Because your research interest matches, so it's going to help you out. And something that you have to emphasize there, like you have to emphasize that. And then you, let's say you're in public policy or your development studies, maybe in the end you can say how you might want to come and work in particular organization, or you want to contribute to some government organizations, you want to contribute to some international organizations in better understanding it, to and you're working towards more accessibility, you're working towards more affordability, etc., etc. You can do that. Okay, But if you're not doing that, then maybe you can say that you would like to continue this research for further, like you want to continue, let's say you're doing anthropology or history, you will say, I'm going to continue this research for PhD, further PhD, further higher studies, so on and so forth. Now, this is where you end, right? In all of this, uh, there is also something very interesting that will come after methodology, where you also have to mention that, let's say you're studying a particular area, you have to say that you know the language, you're familiar with the local culture, okay, you've lived there for so long, okay, and hence you have the added advantage of working in that particular field, because or let's say you've also worked on in a little bit of social movement or political parties, and your work is around politics or community, and all of these things, then you can also mention a little bit about that, how your experience, how your work experience, how your familiarity with the local culture, how your acquaintance with the local language makes you, a greater, a bigger candidate, a better candidate to do this research. Okay, so that is something that will come after methodology. So broadly, this is the structure, and you have to somehow, once you then you write all these different section I told you, you start writing, putting it in a Google Doc or Word file, wherever it is, writing, putting all of your words into these structures, and then you keep revising it. You keep revising it, sending it to one person, another person, but don't keep changing a lot, because you don't have to write like a bland paper. When I say bland paper, uh, what I mean by that is, it shouldn't be like, okay, one section after another. No, it should also have some life to it. And when I say life to it, as in something very unique about yourself, something very unique about yourself that makes you relate to, the larger project, that makes you relate to the methodology, that makes you relate to, the greater contribution that you're going to do, that makes you seem like you already are engaged and immersed in the field. Okay, that you know about this professors a little bit, you've tried to find out. Of course, when you're applying for masters, you don't have to know everything, but the best part is that at least you're interested, at least you're curious about this. Okay, so this is something important. Once you put it out, make sure that you are writing something for each section. Okay, and you are balancing out well. You don't have to write too much about your, some personal event or anecdote or some report in the beginning. You don't have to write way too much. You don't have to write too much about your methodology. You don't have to write too much about, your academic journey. And when you write academic journey in your SOP, you don't have to write, oh, I studied there, I studied that, because CV will already have mentioned that. So during your academic journey, that section, you write a little bit about what you learned, what courses you took, and how that course has influenced you, how some particular thinkers, particular frameworks or concepts, like let's say Habermas spoke about public sphere, right? Nancy Fraser talked about counterpublic. Ambedkar talked about graded inequality. Phule talked about caste hegemony, right? Um, let's say then Sailaja Paik talked about this idea of Manuski. So different scholars and thinkers will have their own theoretical frameworks and concepts, which you learned from, which you used in your writings, right? So let's say Marx's theory of value, or Marx's theory of capital, Marx's theory of exchange value, use value. So whatever theoreticians, whatever thinkers you've read, you mentioned it in your academic journey, but that has to be related to your larger project. Make sure that everything that you're writing in your CV, your SOP, from the beginning to the end, is related to your larger project. You're not just writing it for the sake of it. Okay, and your word count, it's okay, at times it might cross over 50, 100 words. It's fine, you don't have to worry about that, right? So, and the last section is where you're writing. You also maybe write a little bit about how the university, because all the universities abroad are going to have students from different backgrounds, so how that universities itself, the space itself, you're going to learn a lot, because you're going to meet a lot of people, a lot of students, from different backgrounds, how that is going to be so enriching for you. You can mention that as well, right? Or particular courses that some professors take, how you're going to learn from that, right? And how that particular department is known for something. So do a little bit of research on the department as well. do a little bit of research on if they have some great libraries, or if they have some some summer internships, or if they have some particular courses. Do a little bit of research on that, which you will use in your SOP, right? And in the end, like I told you, if you're working on public policy development sector, you can say that how this how through your research you're going to later work in a particular field or sector. And if you're not going to work after your masters, you can say that you're going to continue to work on this for your PhD, right? So something that you can do. So broadly, this is how SOPs work. Okay. And you have to keep drafting it, like you write the first draft, spend some time, give it to someone in that field, then come back again, look into it. So your SOP will keep having reviews after reviews, many draft. And now it's already May. Uh, you're going to apply, if next semester, that's going to be October. So before that, you start writing your SOPs now on, right? But before writing your SOP, do some little bit of research. The first phase of writing a SOP is doing a little bit of research. Okay, the universities that you're going to apply. Okay, select down the universities, the departments that you're going to apply, you know, and do a little bit of research on that. Keep a word file. The department, the university, sorry, the department, the university, the professors, the area that you're going to apply, the word count, and then write a brief. Like, let's say, for example, all the universities will not have 800 or 1000. Some will have 900. Some will have 1200. So make a list that you are going to write your SOP around 1000 words, and then keep a draft, and then keep adding, you know and subtracting word counts according to you know according to the particular demands of that university. You can like add something, you can reduce something, but do some research on that. Do some research about your particular, do some readings, do some, like, if do some readings for your particular field, the important contribution of certain thinkers or writers. And even if you've not read that in your masters or undergrad, you can still say that, okay, you've read it, right, during your academic journey, and how it influenced you. So you mentioned that. Do a little bit of reading, some important articles, maybe a few important books, so that in your SOP, in that academic journey part, you can mention them, right? And a little bit of methodology. What is snowball sampling? What is semi-structured interview? What is focus group discussion? Are you going to do thick description? Are you going to do little bit of thin description? What are you going to do? Little bit of methodology. What is qualitative? If you don't know that yet, what is qualitative field work? What is quantitative study? What is ethnography? What is participant observation? Just read a little bit of that, so that you have some clarity about your methodology, right? Yeah, broadly that. Okay, the first phase before you write your SOP is do a little bit of research about the universities, the department. Okay, little bit about the professors that you want to work under, or the professors that are in that particular department. Little bit of their work. What are they working on? How is their research similar to yours? Okay, and then a little bit of methodology. What is qualitative, quantitative, you know what is ethnography, what is participant observation, and then a little bit about the thinkers that you're influenced by. Okay, or the writers that you're influenced by. Okay, so broadly this, and after that you write your first draft. Okay, so yeah, that's it from my side, and I would love to like hear your questions, and any particular questions you can ask. Don't hesitate.
Yeah. So thank you, Sumit. Thank you so much. You guys must have listened. Sumit has mentioned so many things related to this methodology part. Then you should be knowing your theme, larger concept that you're working. If you're writing SOP, you should be basically also knowing how to reference things sometime. Citation references, that basic thing you should be knowing. And most importantly, like how to do literature review. This is a small part where you mention your references, where you mention the literature that you're thinking of, which is helpful for you. And then the important part is doing research about university, doing research about professor and all. So all this stuff that like for all those student जो फर्स्ट टाइम अभी ज्वाइन किए हैं, उनके लिए हो सकता है कि वो में लगे कि भाई बहुत ज़्यादा है, क्या क्या करना है, 1500 वर्ड का ये लिखना है, फिर ड्राफ्ट बनाना है. लेकिन यू हैव प्रिटी मच गुड टाइम. यू इमेजिन लाइक यू आर बेसिकली अप्लाइंग इन बाय एंड ऑफ दिसंबर. अगर आप दिसंबर तक सब कुछ एप्लीकेशन कर देते हो तो आपको यूनिवर्सिटी का भी स्कॉलरशिप मिल सकता है. तो विद इन यूनिवर्सिटी का स्कॉलरशिप लेना है तो यू हैव टू फिनिश योर एप्लीकेशन बाय दिसंबर. सो यू हैव 6 to 7 months which is a good time. So you are very early in that sense now. So I congratulate for you because हम लोगों ने तो बहुत लेट शुरू किया था, बहुत मेहनत से घिस घिस के ख़त्म किया था, लेकिन यू गाइज हैव गुड इनफ टाइम. एनीवे, तो हम लोग इस सेशन के बाद जो इम्पोर्टेंट सेशन लेने वाले उसमें हम लोग इसमें से कुछ एलिमेंट है, जैसे कि अगर कुछ लोग हो जिनको रेफरेंसिंग कैसे करना होता है, साइटेशन कैसे करना होता है, लिटरेचर रिव्यू कैसे करना होता है, बेसिक चीज़ है. अगर ये नहीं पता है तो वी कैन ग्रुप में हम लोग वोट लेके उसके ऊपर बात करेंगे. आई विल शेयर हियर अ लिंक. नाउ दिस फोरम इज ओपन फॉर क्वेश्चंस. You can ask your questions. You can raise your hand and then you can ask. Yeah. Yes, Sonia Achal.
Hi everyone. Sumit, would you suggest the same format for a PhD applications SOP as well?
For PhD?
Yeah.
And for PhD, where exactly? Like, are you going to, like, is it a European PhD or a US PhD?
Both. Like generically, would you suggest this format, or if I'm like starting to reach out to professors now, would you suggest suggesting a similar format for an SOP with that name?
Okay, so the difference between US PhD SOP and UK is that UK PhD or European PhD, they require a proposal. Okay, and proposal is going to be different from SOP. In proposal, you might not yes, proposal. You might want to mention some interesting event or some interesting thing that you read, all that. But in proposal for your PhD, you might have to elaborate a little bit more. And in proposal, you have to have a section for literature review. You have to expand your methodology. You have to expand your field. I mean, the structure is almost the same, but the point is, in your PhD proposal, what happens is that that personal part, that academic journey that I was mentioning, you don't have to do that. Basically, there is like for your PhD proposal, there is an introduction. Okay, then there is like in your body, there is one big section and a small section, and then your methodology, and then your conclusion, right? Like for okay, let me give you an example that will be clear. For example, I am working on Dalit conversion to Christianity in Orissa, right? I'm going to work on that, but that itself is not sufficient, right? Like, it's just a description. Any journalist can go and understand, like write about Dalits conversion, Dalits are converting to Christianity, they can say. But what does it do to, but what questions am I asking through that, right? And for me, that would be, when I write, when I'm saying that I want to look at Dalit conversion to Christianity, I have to say why it is important at this particular point of time, and why it is important at this particular time, and what have earlier people talked, how have earlier scholars spoken about Dalit conversion to Christianity, and why my study is different, right? Why understanding this conversion at this particular moment is important, because there are certain politics that is happening around it. There is Supreme Court judgments that are coming up, and earlier people said Dalits convert to Christianity because of this reasons, but I argue that here, from a preliminary study or whatever preliminary this thing, Dalits convert to Christianity for different reasons, and this will tell us more about, this will tell us something different about Christianity in Orissa. This will tell us something different about religion in Orissa. This will tell us something different about caste in Orissa, and then you'll do a little bit of literature review, and then you say what you're going to, what you expect to find out from your research, right? The only thing is, word count is also very different when it comes to PhD. In European PhD, for your for your proposal, your European PhD proposal, like Oxford PhD proposal for me was around 2,500 words to 3,000 words, right? But your SOP for masters would be around 800 or 1,000, not more than that. But US PhD, interestingly, also looks very similar to master's SOP in Europe. US PhD is also like 800 to 1,000 words. You get the same structure that I told you. But again, the thing is, it has to be very compact. Compact as in, like, your references should be very solid. That when you say that these are the people who've written on caste and political mobilization, then you have to have 6 7 scholars in one APA format, and 6 7 scholars. These people have written about Dalit conversion to Christianity in India. Then you have to write 6 7 solid scholars: Nathaniel Roberts, John C.B. Webster, Chad Bauman, like solid scholars. So it has to be very compact, and citationally it has to be very strong when you write a SOP for PhD. For a master's SOP, the citation doesn't have to be so elaborate. 3 4 citation here and there, 2 3 citation here and there will work. But when you masters, even for PhD, even for one word, like you say, caste and electoral politics, you have to Asutosh Varsne to Yogendra Yadav to Christopher Jaffrelot to you know a whole lot of people you have to cite. Okay, and that citation practice has to be very strong, when you write your PhD proposal, and that's the difference. Otherwise, some of the things are very similar. Okay, and you have to know what you're saying, right? In PhD, when I say you should know what you're saying, I mean, let's say terms like cultural production, political mobilization, community formation, identity self-fashioning, cosmopolitanism, sociality, social imaginaries, right? These are very heavy loaded terms, right? So when we use that, we cannot just, or let's say epistemology or ontology, these are very heavily loaded terms. So when you use certain, I mean, you should be able to use these terms in a way that really relates to your work, right? So the writing for master's SOP is a bit light when it comes to concepts and frameworks. But when you're writing a PhD, your concepts and frameworks have to be very strong. I think that's the difference.
I think we have one question here, which says basically what is the difference between statement of purpose and the personal statement?
Uh, I think it's more or less the same. To be honest, in most universities, it's the same. In some universities, the personal, statement is largely about your journey. Your academic journey. It's basically summing up your CV in some places. But more or less, if they don't tell you the difference, it's the same in most universities.
Yes, Mohit, you can go.
Hello Prashant, thank you Jai Bhim so much. My question is that I completed my masters in 2024 from University of Allahabad, and I want to pursue masters and any degree from the like foreign country. Like how can I be, like participate in the for the participation and complete for the master's degree? And अगर ये जो 2 साल का गैप है उसको कैसे फुलफिलमेंट कर सकता हूँ, या क्या कैसे ऑप्शन हो सकता है फॉर एनी स्ट्रीम? अभी मैंने कैसे चूज कोई स्ट्रीम नहीं किया कि मैं किस स्ट्रीम में मेरे को मास्टर करना चाहिए, बट मेरे को परस्यू करना है फॉरेन से मास्टर्स.
See, okay, the difference is this. Um, see, foreign में masters करना is a very broad claim, okay? कि foreign में masters करना, foreign is like not one foreign, right? UK है, France है, Germany है, Ireland है, all of this, okay? That you need to keep in mind.
Sorry to interrupt, especially SOAS University or London University.
So you have to be particular.
SOAS College in London University.
Yeah, okay. Where you want to apply, you have to be very particular. Is it like SOAS? Is it going to be King's College London? Whatever. Second thing is your department. You so doing you shouldn't do masters just for the sake of doing masters. You shouldn't study in foreign country just for the sake of it, right? You should also be passionate about the topic that you want to pursue, right? The field that you want to contribute to. You have to contribute to some greater understanding of that field. So field is very important here. If you're working on anthropology, let's say Prashant is studying in anthropology. Okay. So Prashant should be able to tell the professors that he is going to contribute something new to the idea of kinship. Maybe Prashant is going to contribute something new to this idea of, Dalit identity. Maybe Prashant is going to contribute something new to this idea of migration to anthropology through his fieldwork, right? So what is it that new that you're going to do? What is something new that you're going to find out? What is something that new you want to understand, through your fieldwork, and where you're going to do your fieldwork, so like I said, no, before writing your SOP, you need to, you need to read a little bit about what that you're going to look at in your master's SOP. some thinkers, some good articles, and what field you're going to apply. Is it anthropology? Is it political science? In anthropology mein, if you apply what they're looking for, in political science when you're applying
Sumit,
for.
I completed my master's in bioinformatics from University of Allahabad. Yeah. So such connected field I can choose and go for the further studies. So that is my concern. Like I'm not able to like find कि मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ. मतलब I connected with the like our दलित स्टडीज एंड जो भी अपनी चीजें रही हैं उसको मैं पढ़ता हूँ देख रहा हूँ. लेकिन मैंने मेरा मास्टर्स इन बायोइन्फॉर्मेटिक्स में हुआ है तो लाइक बहुत चीजों में मैं ये सोच रहा हूँ क्या क्या कोर्स ऑप्ट करूँ कैसे करूँ. तो थोड़ा सा ये भी मेरा कंफ्यूजन है अभी तक के लिए.
See, so that is something that you have to figure out. Like I cannot tell you ki what particular field you have to choose. So you have to sit down, go through the website of SOAS, go through the website of King's College London or University College London. उसमें courses देखो, उस courses में क्या क्या subjects पढ़ा रहे हैं, तुम्हें interest है क्या उस subjects में, और उसके बाद then you decide, okay, and then you do some reading, spend some time. रीडिंग एंथ्रोपोलॉजी में कुछ लिटरेचर पढ़ो, पॉलिटिकल साइंस में कुछ लिटरेचर पढ़ो, अगर हिस्ट्री अगर तुम्हें करना है मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री तो उसमें कुछ कुछ लिटरेचर पढ़ो, देन यू राइट एन एसओपी. सो देन यू माइट हैव टू स्पेंड एटलीस्ट 2-3 months now to sit and read some more, right? Because you don't know your field yet. तो थोड़ा पढ़ो कि like what field you want to choose. तो थोड़ा पढ़ना पड़ेगा. एंथ्रोपोलॉजी करना है तो क्या पढ़ना पड़ेगा, पॉलिटिकल साइंस पढ़ना है तो क्या फील्ड मतलब क्या पढ़ना पड़ेगा. सो यू हैव टू डू दैट अ लिटिल बिट फॉर सम टाइम. उसके बाद you can choose your field.
Thank you so much. Thank you Prashant. Thank you so much.
We are also going to organize this session on like how to navigate courses and all, and also like once you are allotted a mentor, so you may talk to your mentor. Like we are just trying hard to have some mentors with you. The next question that is in chat. So Shifa Siddiq is asking basically that Sadiq is asking like for someone applying for master's program, do they need to reach out to the concerned department or the professor they want to work under?
No. Usually only when you're applying for a PhD, you reach out to professors under whom you want to work under. But when you're applying for masters, I don't think you need to reach out to them. I mean, of course, if you need some help or guidance or their feedbacks on your particular topic, that will be great. You can reach out, but otherwise it's okay. You don't have to reach out.
The next question is by Bindu. She's I don't know. So asking is अगर research experience कम हो तो SOP कैसे strong बनाए?
Research की जरूरत ही नहीं है before applying for a masters. You don't even have to do any research before applying for masters. Some people do. जो करते हैं वो उसको मेंशन करते हैं वहाँ पे. जो नहीं है जिनका कोई रिसर्च एक्सपीरियंस इट डजंट मैटर बिकॉज बहुत सारे लोग बहुत सारे फील्ड से आके मास्टर्स करते हैं. कोई इंजीनियरिंग किया है, कोई बायोटेक्नोलॉजी किया है. ऑल ऑफ देम आल्सो एंटर इनटू humanities, social sciences. So you don't have to have research experiences, but what they require is कि आपका फील्ड का नॉलेज है या नहीं थोड़ा बहुत. You have to have some brief knowledge about the field. कि एंथ्रोपोलॉजी मतलब कि एंथ्रोपोलॉजी में एथनोग्राफी होती है और फील्ड वर्क होता है, और सोशियोलॉजी में तो मतलब यू शुड नो कि सोशियोलॉजी में वेबर पढ़ते हैं और मार्क्स पढ़ते हैं. लाइक यू शुड have that sort of like brief understanding of the field. I think that's what matters. You don't have to worry about research experience. Research experience नहीं भी हो तो रिसर्च एक्सपीरियंस नहीं हो तो कैसे बना सकते हो स्ट्रांग? बेसिकली कि आप बताओ कि आपके फील्ड का नॉलेज है, आपको फील्ड के कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट थिंकर्स है, कॉन्सेप्ट है और फ्रेमवर्क है जो कि आपको समझ में आता है. ओके
एक्चुअली मैं पीएचडी के लिए पूछ रही थी. सॉरी टू इंटरप्शन. मैं पीएचडी के लिए पूछ रही थी.
हाँ, पीएचडी के लिए भी यू डोंट नीड टू हैव रिसर्च. लाइक आई डिडंट हैव एनी रिसर्च एक्सपीरियंस. I mean, I did master's research, but I didn't have research experience outside of that. So even for PhD, what matters is how strongly are you able to, make your arguments for your research that you're going to do, not what you've done. Like how strongly are you, what is new in your thinking and what is new that you're going to bring to your particular question. To understand religious conversion, to understand electoral politics, to understand, youth education, to understand social media, to understand urban space, to understand, gated communities. What is it that new you're going to bring to understand a particular group of people, a particular place, or particular community? or a particular, concept. What is it that new you're going to bring, and how are you going to bring? That is what matters. So it's your argument to bringing something new is what matters more than like your previous research experience.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The one more question is about like, is it compulsory to consult or have talk with professor for PhD entrance? Oh, sorry, I lost you. Just give me a second. I'm not sure what. I think my Google Meet is. Okay, am I audible now? Sorry, I was mute. So somebody is asking basically like, is it mandatory to talk to professor before applying for PhD?
Uh, See, it's always good to talk to professors, because then they know that you will also have confidence that they know you already, and they'll give you some feedback, or they will give advice key whether they're taking students that year or not. If they're not taking students that year, then there's no point in applying to the university or the department, right? So it's always good to talk to professors, reach out to them. But when you reach out to them, have some draft, a short draft of what you're looking at, what you want to do your PhD research on, and how like you want to work under them, and if they could give some feedback, that would be nice. And if they tell you, oh, apply, then it's you have great confidence in applying to the university, that you have some hope that you're going to get in, right? So yeah, you need to do that. You should need to reach out. Definitely you need to reach out, especially US. Without reaching out, it becomes very difficult to get in, okay, because they might not even consider you to interview. Okay, but in UK, if you reach out to one professor also, it's okay. In US, you might have to reach to two, three professors.
Yes. I think Tushant, you can ask your question.
Hello, Sumit sir. Hello, Prashant sir. Jai Bhim. So this is Tushant. I'm a third year integrated political science student at University of Hyderabad. So basically, I want to do my masters either from UK or US. That I'm still figuring out in political science itself. But I'm not sure like whether to go with international relations or public policy. So as you mentioned that in your SOP, if you have some prior work experience or internship, that might help me in my SOP. But the thing is, as a graduate student, I was trying to explore more and more. So in that way, I worked with in different fields. Like till now, I have did my 5 internships, and in all five, it's not something which is specific. Two are research based. One I did in JNU that includes book editing thing under an assistant professor. Then the last internship which I did was field internship for election in that the ward election in Telangana. So right now I'm thinking of applying for public policy because I'm a bit interested in this. Earlier my interest was in IR. So like what should be my approach in my fourth year of political science? Should I go with some specific internships in public policy or should I still continue with this exploring more and more as I'm confused?
See, the thing is, like, if you already done some sort of internships, I think that should suffice. But if you get a chance to do something else, if you get a chance to do some other internships around public policy, go for it. But for me, I think I would still suggest that it is not so much about what you've done. You know, it's not so much about what you've done, but what are you going to do new? That is what SOP is all about, and that is what matters, because CV may people add hundreds of things, like hundreds of people across the world apply, okay, and they have hundreds of things in their CV, and CV people don't even see it properly. To be honest, I'll tell you, they don't even have the time, because professors are either into writing their books, they have some conference, seminars, book, all that. They don't even have the time to like sit and read, okay, this person has 3 internship, that person has 2 internship, that person has 1. They're not going to compare that, right? So as long as you've done some basic, like whatever 2 3 you've done, that should be enough. What matters is in your work, what is something that new that you're going to bring. That's what I'm saying. It's What I'm saying is SOP is not about arrangement of different things that you've done in the past to somehow get into a master's. SOP is more about you as a unique individual thinking something new and wanting to contribute something new, right? That is what you're going to impress them with. What is it that new that you're going to find out, or that you hope to find out? And this question is so important at this particular point. Like, for example, why, okay, why is, what is, like, for example, some new question, like, for example, what has social media done to young people in rural India? What has it done to their consciousness, right? Or is social media, is social media a useful tool for election campaigns? Okay, how important, how useful it is, or it is not, or is it not useful? Okay, like you can think of hundreds of numbers of questions. Okay, and or with the coming of social media, let's say, has, or okay, let's say political agencies or consultancies. Okay, with the coming of political consultancies, what has happened to democracy? Okay, or what has happened to electoral politics? Is electoral politics the same anymore? So it's always about, like, your brainstorming and your thinking new question. It is not about, how many internships you've done. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Something new that you're going to think.
Thank you, sir.
The next question should be by Sachin. He raised his hand, and after that, one question that I'll read. Sachin Rathod.
Must a specific university and department be mentioned in SOP, or can it be written in general way? Because I will about to apply in many universities. So how it can be managed?
No, so in your CV, you're not going to write, you're not going to write that you're applying to different universities. Your CV is basically about what universities you've studied in, what grades you've gotten in, if you've written some articles, if you've done some extracurricular activities, you've done some internships. In your SOP, you don't have to write that, you're applying to other university as well. In your SOP is, like I told you, largely about what master's thesis you're going to work on, what the methodology that you're going to think about, okay, what you're going to, and little bit of the academic journey. That's it. Your SOP is not about you. SOP, you don't have to mention that you're going to apply to other university and all of that.
I just want to add one thing. Like, see, if you're applying for particular university, so your SOP should be very contextualized to that particular university. So you'll always have one of your draft, which should be covering a large, broad idea of like what you can include in different SOP, which will be a common thing. But like there will be a unique part of your, according to course, according to the context that you're, the university or the course or the department you're going for. Because one of the paragraph will definitely consist of like why this particular university, why this particular department, or maybe like from the department you're mentioning the name of professor. So that is in each. For example, you are applying for 4 different universities, so that paragraph will be different for each university, specific to that university. So you always should have one standard statement of purpose, which would be your main draft, and that draft will be modified according to each university. That is very important. The question that is asked by somebody is basically, I think it is Prashant. I have completed my master's degree and I've been working in the non-profit sector for the last 2.5 years. I'm interested in pursuing masters in social data science abroad, and I have identified some colleges offering relevant programs. However, I don't yet have clearly defined research topic. Can I still apply without specific research idea? If yes, how should I approach the application process and what should be my next steps?
Can you the last part? Can you say it again?
No, it's just like, do I need to have a specific research idea? If yes, then like what should be my next steps?
Yeah, you need to have like a specific research idea, right? Like I said, your idea has to be very particular. Your field can be broad. Like, let's say you're working on religion. Religion. You can apply in anthropology department also. You can apply in political science department also. You can also apply in, sociology as well. You can apply in religious studies as well. But your idea has to be very particular. You can apply in different disciplines, but your research idea has to be very particular. Like I said, before getting into how to write an SOP, okay, what the structure of SOP, take some time off to yourself, at least maybe 7 days, 8 days, whatever. Go out alone and ask, because see, you're a unique human being. Like you're born in a particular place. You've seen some things, that really impacted you. That made you think about the world in a certain way. that made you ask questions. So you think about that question for a while. Why you want to do your masters? Why you want to do your masters is because you want to understand a particular thing in this world. Okay, and after you figured out that particular thing, you come back. Okay, and then you read a little bit about what other people have told about that particular thing, right? Okay, you want to understand about um, you want to understand about slum. You want to understand about slums. Okay, take some time off. Or you just don't want to do your PhD or masters because you're doing it for the sake of it. No, you shouldn't do that, right? If you want to understand slums because you really want to understand slums, then take some time off what you've seen in the slum over the maybe last many years. Or what is it that bothered you about the slums? What other people spoke to you about slums? All of these things. And then what is it that you want to understand something about slums? Okay. And then come back and read a little bit about what other people have spoken about slums. Some professors, some thinkers who've done fieldwork on the slums. What have they told about slums? And then you say whether you agree with them or you disagree with them, and you want to do something new. So your research should be first not about SOP writing. Before your SOP writing is the question that is important. You can spend some time for asking that question.
Yeah.
And don't write, don't you don't have to, just because everybody is trying to look at rural livelihood, you will study rural livelihood. Just because everybody wants to study higher education and experience, you will study higher education experience. You don't have to do that. You are a unique human being. There are hundreds of things in the world that you think about. Okay, and some people might want to study about visual imageries in Nagpur slums. Again, what does it do? How does it gather people together? What impact does it have on young population? Something like that. There are hundreds of questions in this world always floating around. So I think the question is important.
Yeah. The most important part of what Sumit is saying, basically, for example, in my case, like what I find interested is like in Maharashtra, in Dalit movement, it is often said that the Mahar community has often built movement registered against the caste system. And what about the other community? You don't know much about other scheduled caste or other Dalit community. So I was specifically interested in like, is it really possible that Matang never registered against caste? Even is it really possible that community has never done anything? And if not, then why? And if yes, then what? These were certain things that were very interested. I was very interested in, and that helped me, like, even like for my like upcoming PhD things and all in all. I'm still thinking on those things, but my master dissertation is largely around that. So that would be very good, because again, like, you're basically going for, you're going to be into academics, and that is very important, that you should have clear cut research idea. At least you should have some basic idea. Definitely, once you come here, you will get trained more betterly, and then you can make it into your dissertation. So but that is very important. At the end, you should have some idea. Yes, anybody has any question, any doubt? So Sandeep Sandy has question. So talking with professor for applying PhD program, when we have to do that during application process or after the application?
See, if you're applying for a PhD, it's always better to, like, once you have a rough draft of your first SOP, uh, you know, send it to them, write to them saying that, hi, professor, my name is this. I'm a student from this university in India, and I'm interested in this particular topic, and below is my SOP, and I would really love to hear your thoughts on this. Okay, and once you do that, then they will tell you, hey, this year I'm not taking students, or hey, like, let's have a Zoom call and talk about this. Or they will say, oh, I'm not taking, maybe you should write to some other professors. They will give you some or the other advice. Okay, so reach out to as many as people as possible, and if you have read their works, mention that, ki, oh, professor, like, your work is, like really influenced me, or my work is similar to your work, or I would really be, it would be really helpful, useful to get your feedbacks and guidance, something like that. But don't go overboard saying, "Key professor, like, I've read your work, this." No, just like below is my research proposal, my SOP, and I would really love to, hear your thoughts, professor. And I'm looking forward to work on this area. And they will respond.
Yes, I think the follow-up question is basically like, what is the best way to approach in that
Mm,
instance?
best way to approach is like write a short draft of this SOP. Then write the, "Hi professor, my name is this. I'm a master student from this university in India, and my interest, I've been working on this field for quite some time now, and I've been thinking about these questions. And below is my draft, and I would really love to hear your feedbacks and thoughts. And are there any possibilities, that I could maybe work under you?" That's it. Are there any possibilities that so that then what happens is, I want to work with you? No. Are there any possibilities to work under you? You know, and below is my draft. Yeah. And at times, if you want to share your, don't say your CV, just your draft would be fine.
Yeah. Can you just talk, Sumit? Can you just talk about this little bit of like how larger PhD timelines and process goes on, like just to brief introduction of like.
Okay. So, like, for example, I applied for my PhD. I got into my PhD in 2025. 2025 March. I started my PhD process in 2023 November. Okay. So, but okay, the timeline doesn't have to be the same for everybody. Okay. What I'm trying to tell you is, to write your SOP, it will require at least 5 to 6 months for PhD. You write, you keep reviewing. No, no, no. Sorry, no, no. For writing your SOP, it will take at least 2 3 months to write, rewrite, to keep drafting, all that. But to read for your SOP, to have a focus, one-sided reading for your SOP, at least spend 5 to 6 months. Read, read, read. Now, let's say in October, November, you're going to apply. You don't have time. Then cut that short to maybe 3 months. May, June, July. 3 months. Just sit and read all the literature on your particular topic. Okay, global literature, South Asian literature. Critics of that. Little bit about the methodology. Maybe if you're doing some field work, go and spend time in your field a little bit to have some idea. If you're working on some archive, read a little bit around that, right? And then you start writing maybe around August. So August, September, you will keep writing. Then by October, keep revising. So by November, mid-November, you will have a draft of your SOP. Okay, so 3 months minimum for your reading, for your reading. But if you've already done a good master's where you've read a lot, then you might not need to follow this process. You might need 1.5 months or 2 months.
Yeah, but for like, I just want to add for PhD application, anybody who is applying, that person should be well aware about this basic citation references and all, because
Yes,
that
APA.
requires.
Yeah.
The question by Yash. Yash, can you ask your question?
Yes, hello. Uh, Actually, I'm currently looking for applying for the PhD, but I'm just a bit confused. Like, as Sumit, you have done like two master's degrees, one is from India and other is from abroad. Like, do you think is it important to have like master's degree from abroad to apply for like PhD in USA? Because I'm thinking about like applying for USA for PhD degree in psychology. So I completed my master's from India, and I'm really interested into some of the programs. I've gone through some websites, and especially in the counseling side, I've uh, come across some uh, courses. But I'm a bit confused about, is it important to like have a master's? Was also another question that you have already covered. Like, it's not very necessary or important to have a proper paper, published paper. I do have some research experience, but none of my paper got published yet. So just wanted to understand what do you think about this?
No, I don't think it really matters if you've done a master's abroad. Yes, at the first instance, it might seem like if you've done a master's abroad, then your CV is better. It looks better. But I think most people look at your SOP for PhD. And it, like I said, and I will repeat it again and again, i- whether you get into a master's or a PhD, the best thing to do is to be very confident in the question that you're asking. How important is your project? That is more important than anything else. I've seen people who've gotten into PhD, uh, you know, from random universities that not many people know of, but have great PhD questions. Okay, in the long run, that is what matters. You might get into a PhD from anywhere. Okay, but your project is important. Are you asking an important question? It might sound as basic as this thing, but are you asking an important and new question? Because in the end, what matters is it doesn't matter whether you've studied in Oxford or Cambridge or whatever. It is there in the CV. But if you're not able to do a proper project, some interesting project, then you will quietly vanish away in the academic world. Nobody will know you eventually, right? So it's about the question that you're going to ask. So be confident and be very convinced about the question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, so we have one more question by Amrika Ghosh. So the question is basically for PhD application, are we supposed to send an SOP to the professor while approaching them, or would you say sending an abstract of a research project would be better?
Um, okay, I think it works both ways. Like, I have sent both. I have sent abstract as well. I have sent SOPs as well. I have sent SOPs to few professors, few very eminent professors, just to make sure that they are convinced. They're convinced that okay, I know the things that I'm talking about. Like I have a good SOP. But I also have sent abstract to some professors, and I think it doesn't make much of a difference. Both these people have reached out. Both these people have responded. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. You can send an abstract or an SOP, both.
Yeah, so Prashant has a follow up question. I have a broad research interest in studying the cultural hegemony of Savarna and their social cultural capital using social data science, but my idea is still vague. Should I proceed with it, or how can I refine it for applications?
See, the thing is, again, even if your idea is vague, uh, it has to be like you have to again talk about your field work a little bit, what field work where you're going to do your field work, little bit of theoretical intervention. Like I said, thinkers, people like Gopal Guru have written, people like you know Aniket Javare has written. There are many scholars who've written on caste and experiences and phenomenology, and like even on cultural hegemony there are people who've written. You can read them, and like I said, it's mostly about whether you agree with them or you disagree with them. You cannot just say ki you're going to study Savannah cultural hegemony. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to say how earlier people have studied, because everything has been studied in some or the other way. You're not Gail Lombet or Elena Jelitki for the first time you're studying something, right? Everything has been studied. You have to say that whether you agree with those studies or not, or whether you think something new because of those studies, right? So maybe what would be helpful is to just look at some of the scholars who've studied cultural hegemony in terms of like for example, read people like Davis Soneji, maybe my own supervisor, who's written on how these art forms, how some of the Devdasi art forms have been appropriated by some of the caste elites in South India. So that is also some sort of taking up cultures and then making it something else and then doing cultural hegemony. So maybe read some of these scholars and then argue. That would be, I think, a better way to go think through it rather than just giving a vague idea of like Savannah cultural hegemony.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody raised their hand. Can you just ask your question? Samruddhi Sawant. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sumit. So basically, my question was about how, like, your topic is also about caste, and even my topic is about caste. But I think mine is more radical feminism and most of like very radical thinking of anti-caste. And I have realized while applying to a lot of professors I have approached, but The only common answer I have received from them is like, we do not work in this field. Even after when I go through their bios and read who they are, their profile, they do say that they work in caste, but when I email them, they said that they do not work. So I don't understand. Should I tame my research question a little bit down to liberal, or because even if we look at Indian fundings, they strictly say that someone doing caste research shouldn't be getting funding. So it is kind of difficult from the funding perspective as well, and from the finding the professors as well. So what do you think would be a better option for me to frame my research in a way that professors who have worked in caste should actually select me?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's a bit tricky. Like I said, like when you write your SOP, make sure that you're not writing in an activist language, right? Because the thing is active. The thing is that okay, let me be very honest. Everybody knows the answers to why there are problems in this world. Okay, why there are certain problems in this world. Everybody knows that you know there is something deeply wrong about caste. Everybody knows that there is something deeply wrong about religious violence. There is something deeply wrong about gender violence. Everybody knows it, but as an activist, you will claim, okay, it's wrong or right. You have like a very truth value. If something is radical or something is liberal, you can make that claim. But when you're writing for an academic purpose, you always have to pretend that you don't know it yet. You're going to find it out, or you're going to theorize it over a period of time. Of course, this is the sad part of being in academia. Okay, but these are also things that you have to do. You want to understand gender. Okay, you want to understand this interaction between caste and gender, or particular gender experiences of particular caste women. Okay, or particular caste experiences of certain gender. Something like that. You have to frame it in terms of understanding, trying to understand something rather than making a strong claim. Of course, you can talk about violence. Of course, you can talk about you know isolation or exclusion, all of that, but do it through some sort of literature review kind of a thing. Like I said, no, you do some literature review kind of a thing, so that they will see okay, uh, then you go and say, okay, these are the works that have been done, and now I'm going to do something. I'm trying to find something new, or I'm going to propose something new, and see if it works out through my field work, right? Because if you know the answer, then what is the point of doing PhD? Like how Prasant said, he's trying to find out if the other Dalit communities in Maharashtra have done some resistance. If not, why not? If so, why? It's a very simple question. And he's going to find that out through his fieldwork. So he doesn't know it yet. Even if he might have known. You get what I'm saying? So, okay, let me be a bit philosophical, but I'll tell you something interesting that works. Western academia emerged out of something called abstraction. Abstraction means you are using certain particular experiences to generalize it. Okay, that is called abstraction. So even if Prasant knows that there have been incidents of resistance against caste in particular pockets in Maharashtra, he cannot say that yet until he does the field work and then abstracts it, saying ki, yes, there has been, like for example, a lot of people who study Ambedkar movement in Maharashtra will study, let's say, only Mumbai or only Nagpur, but then when they write it as like, okay, Ambedkarite movement in Maharashtra. You're getting, so it's always about abstraction. So you don't say that like, oh, you already know the answer to something. You say that, okay, you're going to find it out, okay, by using some new frameworks, and don't write it like in an activist language. And this again, this is a learning process. You don't have to worry from now on. We all have gone through that process. We all have done activist kind of writing, but academic writing is a bit different, and you will get through it slowly, gradually. Okay. And regarding professors not being interested and all that, many people do that. Like I have written to hundreds of professors, and then 4 or 5 will only respond. Okay. uh, the only thing is to again keep trying, keep finding out some people, some persons, right? And don't really tell them immediately, oh, I'm going to find this, I'm going to write this. No, I'm interested in this, I want to know more about this, and I'm interested in doing this research. Okay, I think that would be a good way to go about it, and reach out to some younger professors as well, who are new in the field. I mean, that would be a great way, because they would be interested for sure.
Yeah. Does anybody have any question? I think, yeah. What's the time? It's 10:47. Yeah, I guess we have covered pretty much, everything, the basic that you need. Uh, if anybody has last question, you can just raise your hand. After that, we can hang up. Um, does anybody has any question? All right. I think most of the things are done. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you so much for joining, taking this session, and I hope like it was really helpful for all of you. If you need anything, I have sent the group link on chat, so that you can join that WhatsApp group. I'm just resending it here. Okay, so you just join that WhatsApp group, so that would be very helpful for you as well to be in contact with us, and we'll be allocating mentors to you as early as possible. We're going to divide some people into PhD and masters, and you know you have good enough time for masters at least. For PhD, you have to work hard. So please be in touch, and also every Saturday Sunday we are planning to have lectures. Every You will have weekly lectures and weekly assignments, or like basically now what is your work now is basically to start thinking about your idea. Maybe like we will send you some sample proposals, sample SOPs. So go through that, go through some other online lectures from SOP, so that would help you to have your thoughts. Also think about like go through some universities, shortlist some universities. If you have any doubt, I'll be keep sending some links on the group, so that you can just explore those universities, check the eligibility criteria. For like this session, I just want to mention certain things. The first is like you should have your CV, you should have a statement of purpose. If any of your course requires research proposal, for example like MSc social research, this course is very much research oriented, so it asks you for your research proposal. Then you should have your transcript. ट्रांसक्रिप्ट आर बेसिकली आप जिस यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़े हो तो वो एक कम्युनिटी ग्रेड सर्टिफिकेट आपको मिलता है डिटेल में, उसमें सारे एक ही पेज पे सब कुछ होता है इंग्लिश में. तो दैट इज़ also very important. And then some universities ask you for writing sample, maybe like some universities ask for like 1500 200 2000 word का writing sample each. तो ऐसा भी होता है, तो you should have one of your writing sample. तो these are basic thing that you should always have. Also like जिन लोगों के पास पासपोर्ट नहीं है, प्लीज़ स्टार्ट अप्लाइंग फॉर पासपोर्ट. ये कुछ यूनिवर्सिटी ऐसी है जहाँ पे दे आस्क यू बिफोर अप्लाइंग कि वो पासपोर्ट का कोड पूछते हैं तुमको, तुम्हारा पासपोर्ट आईडी. सो समटाइम्स दैट इज़ ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट. एंड अभी आपके पास पासपोर्ट है तो दैट वुड बी वेरी हेल्पफुल फॉर योर फंडिंग एंड ऑल दिस स्टफ ऑल्सो, क्योंकि समटाइम्स वो भी ज़रूरी होता है. तो दिस आर बेसिक डॉक्यूमेंट दैट यू शुड हैव. सो वंस यू प्रिपेयर्ड विद दिस, सो अभी से वो लिस्ट बनाना शुरू कर दो. यूनिवर्सिटी का लिस्ट बनाओ, डॉक्यूमेंट का लिस्ट बनाओ, टास्क तुम्हारे सामने क्या क्या है, प्रोफेसर का लिस्ट बना के रखो. सो दैट वुड बी वेरी हेल्पफुल. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग, एंड विल सी यू इन नेक्स्ट लेक्चर, एंड बी इन टच on our WhatsApp group. Thank you, Sumit.
Thank you. Yeah.